Bitcoiners, pre-coiners, no coiners, new coiners, Swan Force members, welcome to a privacy-focused episode of Swan Lounge. Hold on one second. All right, that's much better. My identity's screwed anyway, but yours might be saved. So, welcome everybody. I'm super excited. Before we dive in, as always, a couple housekeeping things. We are giving away Jan Pritzker's book, Inventing Bitcoin, for free in an effort to spread Bitcoin knowledge. Go to swanbitcoin.com/free book to get your copy. We have it in 3 different ebook formats and audiobook by our friend Guy Swan over at Bitcoin Audible. We just ask that you pay it forward. Share the link with as many friends and family as you can. Go out there, orange pill everybody. You're already doing it. Thank you, folks. We've got it in Spanish too. Let's see if I don't butcher the Spanish this time. Y puede descargar su copia en www.swanbitcoin.com/libro gratis. Did it. Got it that time. All right. Even more exciting, we are giving away Gigi's incredible book, 21 Lessons. Go to swanbitcoin.com/21 lessons to get your copy. And one more book. Go to swanbitcoin.com/whybitcoin to get yourself a free copy of the essay series by Tomer Strolight. If you don't know Tomer, go follow him on Twitter. He's amazing. He's part of the Swan team. And he has also written something, an article takedown of Ethereum. I think it was last week, the week before. Highly recommend it. Go read it. Share with all your Ethereum friends. Make them read it. Sit them down. Force them to read it. And let me know how that goes. Now, I've got to ask, are you signed up for Swan Force yet? Because if you're not, you know, folks, I'm disappointed. You know what Swan Force is. It's our amazing referral program. Get paid to orange pill people. Matt Odell is going to tell us today why he hates referral programs, but that's okay. We all have our differences. I'd also like to welcome anybody who's new to the show. Welcome to Swan Lounge. This is the Friday show in which you get to hang out with some of the Swan team, some of our friends from the world of Bitcoin. Sometimes we talk about the news. More recently, I've decided we should focus on some more educational stuff. So today we're going to focus on privacy. Housekeeping. I think that's it. Before I bring our guests in, one last thing, you know what I'm going to say. Hit that like button, hit subscribe. It helps us grow the show. It helps us get seen, helps us spread the good word about Bitcoin. All right, it is now time for Swan Lounge. We've got, who do we have today? We've got Camila Campton. We've got Reed Wommack, both from Swan. They're going to be talking a little bit about some privacy basics on the Swan front. And of course, we have Bitcoin and privacy advocate, co-host of Tales from the Crypt and Citadel Dispatch, Matt Odell. On a side note, Matt Odell and Marty are probably the main reason I am the Bitcoiner I am today. I started listening to Tales from the Crypt, and I had my mind blown, and I realized, okay, something's not right with this whole crypto world that I was inhabiting, and I kept listening, and next thing I know, I'm a Bitcoin maximalist. That's just how it works. So if you don't follow Matt and Marty, I don't know what you're doing. You all probably do. So time for the show. What's going on, friends? How you doing today?
Cheers. Great. Super excited to have Matt here. I was listening to Rabbit Hole Recap this morning with my husband. First thing we did when we got up, and it was like, this is the way to get pumped on a Friday. It was awesome.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Really good. Yeah.
Marty was in rare form yesterday.
Yes.
I didn't know that Marty was moving to Austin. Maybe I just missed that. And now that I heard that, I kind of just want to. I've never even been to Austin, so I need to go. But I kind of want to YOLO into Austin. Just go online, find a house, and make the move.
It's the Bitcoin capital of America right now.
Yeah, I feel like I might have to do that. Camila's trying to get me to move to Denver, but
yeah, I mean, it's okay that you missed Marty moving to Austin. I mean, he has no furniture in his house yet, so it's a very, very fresh move.
Yeah. All right, let's dive in. So, Matt, we brought you on the show because
privacy. Going to talk about price euphoria?
No, not to talk.
Yeah, about Bitcoin's up 5%. Let's just talk about that all whole episode.
The show, we'll talk about the exciting stuff. We're at $48,638 according to TradingView, Bitcoin USD on Bitstamp. Should we just make this like an RHR? Should I bring up the Clark Moody's dashboard? And what is up, freaks?
You're the host.
Yeah, I guess not. We can't steal the thunder. Where do we think price is going? We never talk about this on the show. This is weird. Are we going to 50K? Are we going to 60K next week? 60K by conference day?
Why so bearish? I'm not making any more predictions, but I expect it to go up substantially eventually, some point.
Thanks.
I agree with that.
Very helpful. I'll just keep stacking then, I guess. That's all you can.
I still have people that just post 200K by conference day in my responses whenever I tweet out.
What conference day, though? They didn't say which one. Eventually, it will happen.
Yeah, there will be a conference day, and the price will get to a certain number of Ks by that conference day. It will happen.
So we're going to talk about my favorite topic, Bitcoin privacy, right?
We are. I put together a little outline, which you informed me you did not read, but that's fine. And basically what I want to start off with before we get into sort of general, like, more specific topics is like, I want us to kind of put ourselves in the shoes of someone who's brand new to Bitcoin. And Matt, like if you could talk to yourself from, before you got into Bitcoin, like what would you tell yourself? Like, what are some things that generally speaking, you wish you had known then that you now know now?
Don't sign up for Coinbase. Don't trade shit coins. Don't get rid of don't stop using your NIMs and switch to your real face. I should have never put my real face on video.
I was thinking about that the other day. I'm like halfway between, but my name's out there. So I think I'm kind of screwed.
Yeah, I had no idea, and I just kind of went for it. And not only that,
Her privacy is getting real good.
They're trying to censor her.
Camilla's privacy is great right now. Camila, are you coming back to us? Are you coming back? Camila. Oh, Camila.
Where she was going is likely where I'm going, which is, I'm realizing now how much I wish I were a NIM. And may go that route eventually. Reed Wommack may just disappear from the Bitcoin space, never to return again.
I think I'm having some issues on my side as well. Is it like fuzzy for you at all?
Let me look at the stream. You're a little fuzzy on YouTube, but it's not terrible.
You and Reed look demonic on my side.
Demonic? No.
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't know how to explain it. But yeah, I think that first of all, it's not mutually exclusive. You can have NIMs as well as your legal identity or your face. I do. And then I think the second thing is I've come to the realization that most people will realize the importance of privacy in some kind of aha moment when they realize, oh, fuck, I have no privacy. So it's just a fact. Reed's now back to his proper picture, but Brecky's still fucked up. It's just a fact that people have to live with, that most, like 99% of people in this world, specifically in the developed world where like our whole life is online, have no privacy. You have very, very little privacy. So if you come to that realization and you regret your past actions, you're with everyone else that comes to that realization. And there are tangible things that you can do to improve your current situation to try and be in a better spot.
So I was going to save this for a bit later, but I think maybe we should move this to the front. Let's maybe talk about like the importance of privacy. I was at dinner with some friends 2 nights ago, and we were talking about the whole COVID situation. And I was, as the Bitcoiner I am and listener of RHR, bringing up, financial surveillance and vaccine passports and trying to get them to talk about these things. And one of my friends literally said, I mean, and I'm quoting here, like, I have nothing to hide. Like, why do I care if they know these things? So like, what do you say to someone who believes that? And why is privacy important?
I think there's the overwhelming majority of people, and it goes hand in hand with my earlier comment, won't understand the importance of privacy until they get burned, until they have some type of moment where they get really exposed and they don't like it. And they're like, this is not how it should be. It's important to realize, and I'm quoting the Cypherpunk Manifesto here, it's not my own words, that privacy is not secrecy. It's not this idea that I'm I want to be like a shadowy supercoder and be completely anonymous, right? The idea of privacy is that there are certain things that I want to reveal to people, and I want to be able to have the power to selectively reveal them to people rather than my whole life being an open book to everyone, to be used by people, to be used by malicious actors. I think a perfect example is kind of an afterthought now. People don't really think about it. But remember that iCloud breach where like a bunch of celebrities all had like their nudes exposed? They called it the fappening. The fappening. There was a bunch of celebrities that up until that point probably thought I had nothing to hide. Right. And then their intimate photos got released and they were like, oh shit, I actually wanted to hide that. Right. Or message conversations. We have email leaks. People's emails get leaked. When they're talking and their conversations get leaked. We're probably going to have Zoom conversations get leaked. They transcribe all of that shit. So intimate financial records, like as these things get leaked, people will learn, oh shit, I wish that didn't get leaked. And they're going to also learn what Barbara Streisand learned, which is you can't remove something from the internet. So they're going to get a very painful lesson, and then they will seek out the tools. So I think while privacy education is important in terms of trying to express the importance to people of why they should care about privacy in the first place, most of my effort is helping people who already realize that privacy is needed using the tools that exist. And I think that is more productive. I think we should have the tools available. We should support the tools that are available. We should use those tools. We should build education around making it easier to adopt and use those tools. And then as people realize the need, they will come towards it. And actually that's my philosophy on Bitcoin too. Like I think I obviously, like, if I'm like 3 drinks deep at a bar, like I'm trying to get everyone at the bar to buy Bitcoin. But most of my focus isn't on trying to get pre-coiners to buy Bitcoin. It's people that already realize that they want Bitcoin and trying to help them onboard in a self-sovereign private way.
Do you think it's worth our time to try to convince people about the more philosophical like reasons to care about privacy? Like, without, like, I believe that without the ability to remain anonymous, like we wouldn't have democracy, and like when I try to like talk to people about this, it always fails, and maybe I'm just bad at it.
It's too theoretical. Yeah. It's like, I've had those conversations. I even something that's like tangible in the real, welcome back, Camila. Even something that's tangible in the real world, like what's happening in Afghanistan right now, where the US government forced digital IDs and biometrics on the populace for voting, and also for collaboration when they like worked for us. If they were guards or if they were interpreters or whatever, they're all bagged and tagged with like iris scans and face scans and fingerprints. And now the Taliban is presumably going and using that information to target opposition, right? And this is a story as old as time, where you have dictators and authoritarians who come in and the first move they do is data collection, right? In this case, in the Taliban's case, they actually inherited the database from someone else who did the collection for them. But we see this in China with the surveillance state in China. It's very obvious, social credit scores, stuff like that. People in the West, you give them this obvious example of what's going on in another place, and it just doesn't ring. For most people, it just will not ring until they get burnt. Maybe I'm just being a pessimist about it, but I think it's just a pragmatic viewpoint. It's what I've witnessed that most people just will not realize until it happens close to home. So maybe the catalyst will be another. Look, we had T-Mobile, 100 million customers just got hacked. AT&T, they're saying maybe 70 million customers just got hacked. We had Equifax, which was basically every single US adult got hacked. We're going to probably see all these vaccine passport databases get hacked. We're going to see medical records get hacked. We're going to see all sorts of financial records get hacked. And as these happen, we'll get another 1% that realize that privacy is important, and it'll just add up over time. That's my optimistic take.
What's the pessimistic take?
1984.
Yeah, the pessimistic take is like we're just too far gone, and like a select few will have privacy, and those select few will stand out from the crowd because most people are just an open book. So if you like walk down the street and
hopefully they won't stand out from the crowd.
if you walk down the street and 98 out of 100 people register on facial scans and their KYC phone in their pocket that's tracking them everywhere they go, and they have their smartwatch on that is constantly taking their heartbeat and measuring stress levels and reading all their messages, then those two people that don't look awfully suspicious as they're walking down the street.
Yeah.
Do you just think that the Western world thinks that they're untouchable, even though these hacks have happened? Like, why doesn't it click for these people?
I mean, how many people do we know also like get pissed off when they get a targeted ad and they don't realize that they're getting the targeted ad because of all the information that they're leaking, you know, and they don't, I don't know.
It's funny because sometimes with that specific scenario, like the average person might actually jump to even bigger conclusions like, oh, they're listening to me. The phone is listening to what I'm saying. When really it was probably like a Google search that happened on their Wi-Fi by either them or a friend or a family member that gave them that targeted ad. And it wasn't actually the phone listening to them, but they just jumped to that conclusion. But at the same time are just like, oh, it's too far gone. I don't even care. And I think, you know, what it comes down to, Camila, is you'll always see a privacy versus convenience trade-off. It'll always be more convenient to have less privacy. It'll always be more convenient to trust a company to protect your privacy, to choose a closed source option like Apple and say, like, I trust Apple. Apple's going to protect everything I do. I trust Amex. They're going to protect my financial transactions. I don't care if Amex knows because I know Amex isn't going to share it with anyone because I trust them. It's more convenient for people to do that than actually try and take their private data and own that private data and secure it themselves. So as a result, you know, people are, you know, they like convenient options. Convenience sells, and everyone is just trying to live their lives and they don't want to go out of their way. That's why I think the way we get over the convenience hump is people getting burned. And I think it's very similar to my viewpoints on Bitcoin. Where a large portion of Americans would say to you, I don't have any need for Bitcoin. My credit card works fine. Venmo works fine. All these different things work fine. And then all of a sudden, if you're an OnlySats creator, an OnlySats simp, like you have no way to pay with US dollars anymore, right? And you have to go out and seek out Bitcoin. You have to go out and seek out censorship resistant money. You have to go out of your way. It's less convenient, but there's a tangible reason you want to do it. As long as the more convenient options are there, most people are going to choose the more convenient options.
Sorry, Matt, 1 second. You just gave me an idea, and I need to buy a domain before you do.
OnlySats.com is already taken. I do not own it. Someone got it in 2019.
Man, you think they've been waiting for this very moment, and now they're going to release OnlySats? They've had the code just waiting.
Dang.
I like to think that, yes.
I hope so. If you're watching, OnlySats owner.
But there's already people doing it on Sphinx Chat. Like there's tribes dedicated to basically like an OnlyFans type model where a lady will just post pictures and they're behind paywalls. I don't know if you use Sphinx and you pay with Lightning to unlock the photo.
Now we've got a question from Roman. It's a bit more advanced, but I think it's a quick one. What does Matt think about running Calyx OS on your daily driver and then using an iPhone without a SIM for the spyware? Only for the spyware? Only access
for like, he's talking about like for banking apps and Twitter and stuff like that. Yeah, that works.
Yeah. All right.
Or like use it in Wi-Fi only mode. It's like a tablet. It's like a little tablet.
Mm.
It's a good step.
Let's, I think I've got my graphene sitting here somewhere. I mean, no, I don't.
That's what I do, Roman. Like I have a phone that's Wi-Fi only that I use for like Twitter Spaces and Clubhouse and stuff like that. And then I use my Calyx OS Pixel 5 for my actual phone. It doesn't even have Twitter on it.
Matt, I have a question regarding sort of people getting burned and and lack of privacy, and companies sort of moving from private models to non-private models as they scale. Namely, so you sort of expressed that enough people need to get burned, and then they'll switch over to valuing privacy. When they switch over to valuing privacy, presumably they'll go to these companies or open source projects that also value privacy. Those will then get more and more popular. And I guess my concern is around whether those end up being new institutions at the time. As those institutions grow and expand, they get corrupted, and you have to sort of every 10 years, 30 years, or cyclically jump ship from the old corrupted models into sort of the new open source models that are being produced.
Yeah, I mean, you remember Google saying, right, "Don't be evil."
Yeah,
they're like one of the most evil companies in the world.
Now, whereas
right.
I think 20 years ago,
when they wrote the slogan, they meant it. I think.
Yeah,
I don't think they were.
But I guess what I'm getting at is whether you see that happening both in the Bitcoin space or with privacy protocols as they exist now. Like they could be great options now, but if they scale too much, if they get essentially too convenient, too popular, they will then be the incumbent that is captured. And
look, everything has trade-offs, right? And when we're talking about privacy versus convenience, most of these products, projects, tools will fall somewhere along the convenience versus privacy trade-off, right? Yeah. And we see like people want to stay on the convenience side as much as possible, right? So maybe they had a stock Android phone, a Google phone, and they're like, Google's spying on me. I'm not going to go Matt is crazy paranoid. I'm not going to do what Matt's doing. I'll just buy an iPhone. I saw a billboard. iPhone means privacy, right? And then they go to iPhone. And then they find out that iPhone's scanning their messages and their video content, their photo content, and they're like, okay, I can't. iPhone doesn't mean privacy anymore. I can't do that. Maybe I'll go for and I see people saying this to me because I just had a show on basically flashing an open source version of Android without Google in it onto your Pixel device. People say, I don't want to go that far. Is there like a company I can buy a specific privacy phone from? And then that's like a little bit further on the privacy to convenience trade-off. I think ultimately where we're going is the ultimate end game is using open source sovereign tools that don't rely on a third party, right? We had Nick Szabo and his writing, trusted third parties are security holes. And as you said, if they get too big, they end up being a point of failure, a place where you can apply pressure and get them to maybe adopt certain things. But also it's not even that. I mean, in the case of Google, in the case of a lot of these companies, there's shareholder pressure, right? So data is valuable, right? Data is super valuable. There's a push to monetize that data. It's one of the easiest ways to monetize a tech company is to take all that user data you have, regardless of what your company is, and monetize it in some way. We always hear the term anonymized location data, right? And so AT&T makes bank off of everybody's phone bills, but shareholder pressure dictated that they were also going to sell everyone's location to marketers, right? Like they never had that as part of their business model, but they were like, holy shit, we can make billions of dollars selling people's location data, which by the way is not like they say it's anonymous, but that's ridiculous. Like if I go from work to home over and over again, like it's obvious who the fucking person is. So ultimately where we want to go is open source tools, right? And that's where this is why Bitcoin gives me hope, right? This is why the wider FOSS movement gives me hope, because we have tools for encrypted messaging. We have tools for relatively private web browsing. Now we have tools for relatively private money transfer, right? So as we add all these different tools to our proverbial toolbox, you start being able to opt out completely of a third-party dominated system. But it's going to take some time.
Is there like a place where you can go look and see all the different services and then see like the spectrum that you're talking about, convenience versus privacy? So it's more of like a visual that you can show people, because I feel like some people are a lot more visual than like if you just tell them something.
There's a lot of work that needs to be done on the education front because people that are educating based on this type of stuff are usually doing it on a volunteer basis. It's one of the reasons why I like to promote people that are doing this kind of work and get people to hopefully donate and support, which is another avenue that Bitcoin has brought to the table, is that these kind of creators, someone like Bitcoin Q&A or 6102 Bitcoin or Keep It Simple Bitcoin, these Diverter, these independent education creators are able to monetize without exposing their identity to a third party, right? So all of a sudden we're seeing more of these tools come out, I think, as a result of that. So one website that is pretty useful is Privacytools Io. They list a bunch of different privacy tools and rank them. There's so much nuance that it's really hard to like objectively rank these things. And a lot of times, like I think people just need to, play around with them. I obviously, for Bitcoin privacy, I like bitcoinprivacy.guide, which is Bitcoin Q&A, who I said earlier. Keep It Simple Bitcoin has good guides. You guys have great guides. I think on a positive note, for the people that are like, oh my God, Matt just wants us to use like all these open source tools that have like horrible interfaces and stuff. I think Apple has shown, as much shit as I give them, I think they have shown that there is a market niche, a growing market niche for privacy. Not just lip service privacy, but actual privacy. People want actual privacy. And they proved it out in the market. They went really hard on, iPhone, that means privacy, or whatever their slogan was. So I think there is a role for third parties, companies to come in and offer relatively convenient privacy tools. A good example of that is Threema, which is an encrypted messaging app that is open source, but is run by a company, it's an interesting model because you pay for the app rather than them monetizing your data. And even though it's open source, they run the servers. The servers can't see anything, but they run the servers. So if you were to use like a fork of the project, you wouldn't be able to communicate with the same contact list. Now, could they make way more money if they went to like WhatsApp model where they were, selling user metadata? Like, yeah. So like there's niches available, but it comes down to what Reed said is like, it feels like people end up getting corrupted like 7 years into the line, 8 years into the line. And they decide to go for the big payday. But kind
of reminds me of that quote that Marty always brings up from, was it Thomas Jefferson or something, about how we need a revolution every 15 years or something like that.
Yeah, I mean that was like a horrible prediction by Thomas J. We haven't had a revolution since.
No, let's loop things back to Bitcoin a bit and kind of again try to put ourselves in the shoes of someone who's new, right? Like Matt. Okay. So like somebody's new to Bitcoin, they've just heard about it, they're here to fix it. No, they're not here to fix it, but they're
like here to 2 months they will be ready to fix it.
They're here to make bad gains in 2 weeks. Get out.
Oh man, on a slight tangent, did you see that Economist yesterday with that word salad thread? Oh, it was terrible. She literally said Bitcoin has like a naive monetary policy. Here's how to fix it. I was just like, no. Anyway, back to Bitcoin. You're new to Bitcoin. You heard about it. You're semi-orange pilled and you want to get started. What's your advice to people on where to go to buy Bitcoin? Obviously Swan, but also let's talk like KYC, non-KYC, and talk about privacy.
First of all, shout out to Marty's Owl in the live chat. Appreciate you. Woo. Young Lurk is asking me what I'm drinking. I'm drinking something called ranch water.
It does not sound appetizing.
It's a hard seltzer.
That sounds like the water in like the horse trough. Like
they use agave.
Or it's like the sweat off the rancher after their long day of ranching. Ugh. I like those high noons. Those are good. But
yeah, I'm on like the anyway. What were we talking about? Oh, first step, you enter into Bitcoin. I was actually just on the Blue Collar Bitcoin podcast, and like we just had like a 2-hour conversation about this topic. I think the number one mistake people make in the beginning, and is when you sign up for a regulated broker or exchange on-ramp, whether that's Swan or Coinbase or River or Cash App, you're providing your identification information. You're providing full IDs. Oftentimes you're providing social security numbers, pictures, driving license. And so they have your full IDs, and then they're also going to have any withdrawal addresses you use on the Bitcoin side. You withdraw out to the Bitcoin chain, and you withdraw out to your address, random numbers and letters, and that's attached to your identity in some database held by them. So I have been very outspoken against the dangers of KYC, but there's a nuanced aspect here that even if someone doesn't want to go the full hardo mode of no KYC and trying to avoid KYC completely, which is, let's be honest, 99% of people that enter the space are going to come in through a KYC on-ramp.
Before you go on, just to kind of add to this, probably my biggest regret, and aside from revealing my identity and all this, is back in 2017, I didn't even know that it was a bad thing to do KYC. I didn't think about privacy. I KYC'd with so many different exchanges.
So that's what I was about to say.
Yeah.
So the number one thing that I think I want to get across to people, and this not only goes to new people, but this goes to every single one of us who are onboarding other people, right? And helping pre-coiners come into the space, is the decision on where you decide your on-ramp is going to be is a very important decision. We see people come in and they come in on Coinbase. They just think about it off the bat, or they come in through Robinhood. You can't even withdraw. And then they realize they're like, I don't like this. And then they go and KYC at Swan, and they're like, I don't really like this. And then they go KYC at River, and then they go KYC at Binance. And then next thing, before you know it, they KYC at BlockFi. Let me get some interest. And then before you know it, they have their KYC in 8 different databases, 9 different databases, all of different companies with different levels of maybe community trust or personal trust. So
Matt, you got the order wrong, by the way. Usually it's Coinbase, then Binance, then River, then Swan, and then they stay there. But just
there you go. Well, you're a little biased, but anyway, my point is if you do KYC, you want to try and pick the most reputable possible in your mind. Even if you trust someone, they can still get hacked. They can still make a mistake. They can still fold under government pressure and hand all of it over anyway. And then the government might get hacked because the government can't even there was a 2 million person terrorist watch list that just leaked. They can't even keep their collaborator lists in Afghanistan protected. But at the very least, you should try and pick a company that is reputable, that you trust more than other companies, and you should try and limit your KYC as much as possible. Limit the amount of services that you sign up for with your KYC information. And as Bitcoiners who onboard other people, we're not on the watch list yet, Camila, but we will be soon. As Bitcoiners who onboard people, it's almost more onto us to make that decision on what we recommend to them going in, rather than just giving them some kind of flippant, just buy Bitcoin and just let them go into a Google search down the hellhole. You gotta kind of hold their hand and make it clear to them that this is a long-term relationship you're having with this company, because by regulation, these companies, Swan included, you can't delete the data for a certain period of time. I think it's 7 years, 6 years. That data has to be held for financial regulation purposes, the KYC information. So if you go into Coinbase and you hashtag delete Coinbase, they still save all the back end information. And ideally, it'd be nice if it was in a filing cabinet, but probably on a server somewhere. They have to save all that financial information for at least 7 years. So this is a long-term relationship. It's a custodial relationship. We talk about Bitcoin custody, people holding your coins. It's people holding your privacy, people holding your data. And it's very important that it's a thought that people actually think about it and actually consider the trade-offs and the reputations of all the different companies in the space when they choose where they go.
100%.
And what the user wants. I mean, as like, I onboard a lot of folks, and a lot of folks just blindly sign up for Swan and are like, let me get started trading. Are you selling Ethereum? And it's like, I don't know who suggested that you sign up for Swan, but I would hope that they would have taken 2 minutes to explain to you that we don't sell it.
Or I had friends. I had
so
friends
like,
during the dump asking me how they could sell their Bitcoin on Swan. I was like, you can't.
Yes,
you can if you withdraw to self-custody and then do with it as you wish.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. But I do think it is really important, if you have the time, if you care about somebody, to like get some sort of sense of like, is this person just a degenerate gambler? Like they're gonna be pissed off if they like you tell them to sign up for Swan and then they realize that they have to be forced into saving, and like that could piss them off a lot, And so like maybe in that case, like, look, go check out River. Like you can buy and sell as much as you want there. You can like try and time the market as much as you want. Like go there. So yeah, it is important, very important to choose reputable companies, but also like the companies that provide the services that you want and that you want your friends to like be guided toward.
Yeah. And the support that you want as well. The support is super important because you don't want to be with a company that just kind of leaves you behind, never gets back to you. It's like you said, it's a relationship. It's a journey together, helping them on their Bitcoin journey. So it sucks when you have people use Coinbase and then they leave because the support sucked. So it's like all of the Bitcoin companies should be able to take care of their people. It's really sad to see people have to leave for those very silly reasons, in my opinion.
Speaking of, everybody in the chat, go to swanbitcoin.com/support and just say hi to Reed. Don't even leave a real ticket. Just bother him. Just fill up the inbox. Say hi, Reed, in all caps.
No, just file a support claim asking why you can't buy ETH.
Don't do that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing. Is like you're picking a long-term relationship. Pick it like it's a long-term relationship. Don't pick it like it's a 45 minutes rush to get into Bitcoin. Like take your time, and do it prudently.
Go for it, Reed.
I think another really important beginner step is to start connecting with people in Meet Space, because that often provides the best KYC free or low KYC option for acquiring your first Bitcoin, and also just learning about self-custody, where it's almost more intuitive to learn about self-custody when somebody is sending it peer-to-peer. In fact, it's a lot more than if you have it on an exchange and then you need to then send it to your wallet as a withdrawal. And a lot of beginners are then very confused about like where they're withdrawing it to. Like, am I withdrawing it back to my bank, or what is this wallet thing? Whereas, you go to a Bitcoin meetup and you download a wallet to your phone, somebody hands you $100 bill, or you hand somebody $100 bill, they send you $100. Like, that's very intuitive. And I think that's a good way, faster way to understand what private keys are and what Bitcoin is.
I mean, I think so. We were talking about on the previous show I just did with the fireman. We were talking about like what's the first step, like if you're trying to help a friend or a family member onboard, right? Mm-hmm. And I before they even sign up for an exchange or something, like I really like the idea of them downloading a mobile wallet and then sending them some money, whether or not they give you money for that. They give you $50 and you give them Bitcoin, or maybe you get dinner and they pick up the tab of dinner and you send them your half, maybe with a little bit of juice on top, just to get their mind moving, right? Of Bitcoin. That's probably the single best thing you can do, just to get them in the door. They get to see what Bitcoin really is about, and it gives them a better frame of mind, and they're not exposed to KYC in that moment. So I 100% agree with you that I think that is the single best thing. I would say that like that's up to us as Bitcoiners when we're onboarding friends and family. If you're a pre-coiner and you don't have that available to you, then yeah, seek out a meetup or something. But I personally, I think most people probably get onboarded through friends and family before they ever go in. I can't imagine how intimidating it would be going to a meetup and never owning Bitcoin. Like you haven't ever even touched it at all, and you like walk into like BitDevs or something. I don't know.
Hold up, important. Somebody in the chat asked which mobile wallet, and Marty's Owl. Come on, Marty's Owl. We do not recommend Coinbase Wallet ever.
For the beginners. For the beginners, my go-to recommendation, this will probably change within 4 months, is Moon Wallet, MUUN. What's nice about it is it's both Lightning and on-chain. And for a beginner, it's nice because they can just scan any invoice and it just works. And so it's very easy for someone to conceptualize it. That's the one I've been, and it's cross-platform. It's both on iPhone and Android. But in general, I think mobile wallets don't get enough focus. A lot of people think like, okay, so like new user buys on Coinbase and then they leave it on Coinbase for a year and then it goes up 10x in value and then they move directly to a hardware wallet. I think that skips a step. I think mobile wallet is where people should get comfortable with spending, sending, backing up, restoring their Bitcoin wallets and getting comfortable with Bitcoin. Everyone has a phone. Most people have a phone that's way too nice and way too expensive because that's just our culture. It's usually nicer than their computer. So it's a great learning platform for people to get started with Bitcoin.
I love that. I just wanted to add like a little anecdote because this is completely true. So I was on a trip to Colombia visiting family, and I was having a conversation with two uncles that were super skeptical about it. And that's the first thing I did was just download a wallet to their phone, then show them from my phone how Bitcoin works through Lightning. And that completely sparked their interest. And so it's like, okay, now you have this. Now you have the Spanish book that I sent you months ago that you never touched. Start learning about it and we can keep this conversation going. But it's up to them also to start getting that education. But I never recommended an exchange or anything in Colombia. I don't know what the best exchange is down there, but it's just important for them to get that education first, and then we can start doing research if they want to go down that rabbit hole. But Lightning wallets are awesome. It's an awesome way to onboard people.
100%. One other thing I think is kind of important is like even at this early stage in the conversation with someone, you can use it as an opportunity to teach them about things like privacy, right? Like they may not be the type that wants to, go use Bisq right away, but you can use that moment to kind of explain, why you might want to consider doing something like that, Well, look, and also what you're giving up when you do use KYC and like when you buy Bitcoin through a KYC exchange, which, my position on this, at least like real quick, is that like, I think for certain use cases, it's fine to buy Bitcoin on a KYC exchange. Obviously I do it. I work for Swan. But I think if and when you start caring about privacy, like you should also build up a stack of non-KYC Bitcoin.
What is Brady's title at Swan? Is he CMO?
Head of education.
Yes, but head of education. We have it slightly different. So
I give Swan. Swan is like one of the few regulated companies that has executives. Or is Brady an executive now? We'll call him an executive. Executive
Brady
that are outspoken about people using privacy best practices after they withdraw. There are companies in this space that in their terms of service explicitly state that you can't use Coinjoin, that you can't use any kind of privacy in best practices with your Bitcoin. You have to be like as cuck as possible with your Bitcoin. And then there's a middle ground where there's a bunch of companies that kind of look the other way, but they're not outspoken about it, right? So Brady has been super outspoken about people using Coinjoin after they withdraw. I respect that. I think it's prudent from the company perspective, and I think it's prudent from the user perspective, because the company doesn't want to have you don't want to have all this data potentially leaking and exposing all your customers. That would be horrible. It'd be absolutely disastrous. And all of a sudden, like if you have like a BlockFi type terms of service where you say you can't use Coinjoin, to a hacker, that data is even more valuable, right? Because the hacker knows that they're going to get way more information out of the hack than something that's a privacy focused company. But let me just pull it back for a second. I get really deep in the weeds about like the nuances of Bitcoin privacy and the gotchas. And a lot of the reason is because when I was first starting out, no one really told me this shit. And I had my aha moment. I was like, oh my God, I've leaked so much fucking information. But what most normies are coming from is they're coming from fucking Venmo, right? And they have no privacy whatsoever. So even in some of the worst case situations with Bitcoin, it's still, to me, it's a step in the right direction compared to using a service like Venmo, especially when they, like in the beginning, I think they just defaulted to publicly broadcasting all of your transactions to people as well. But obviously you have no privacy when you're using Venmo.
So why don't we, somebody in the chat had an interesting question about Coinjoin. Why don't we kind of talk a little bit about how to secure your Bitcoin safely? And then we'll kind of move into the Coinjoin discussion on the basics of that to sort of understand it. For someone who's new, you were talking about phone wallets, and there's always a fight going on Twitter about hardware wallets. But what are your personal recommendations and things that people need to think about when they're deciding that they either are ready to withdraw from an exchange and take custody, or even if they're going straight to the non-KYC route and they need a first wallet to use?
So first of all, this is a major rabbit hole, right? Like, don't get overwhelmed to begin with. Take small, tangible steps, slowly improve your privacy. I have a list of tools and resources and guides at citadeldispatch.com/help. I mentioned bitcoinprivacy.guide earlier, which is Bitcoin Q&A's privacy guide. I think the first step is right. So we're on an exchange, right? And we're withdrawing. We draw to a mobile wallet. We practice sending and receiving. We back up. We restore. We get comfortable with it. Then maybe after we start to hit a certain threshold, we move to a hardware wallet, right? I guess that threshold, I think that threshold's higher than most people think it is. I think mobile wallets are hot wallets, yes, but they're self-custody. If you use a reputable one, there's a lot of shit ones on the App Store and stuff. You just type in Bitcoin wallet. But if you use any of the ones at citadeldispatch.com/help or the ones you see on Bitcoin Twitter, they're basically all great. And we haven't seen any kind of big, massive account drain of those wallets. I'm not saying it can't happen in the future, but we've seen exchanges get hacked. We've seen account closures on exchanges. We've seen people get frozen out because of shotgun KYC. And we haven't seen a major mobile wallet hack. So I think that threshold's a lot higher. Like if I had a normie come to me and say $10,000, right? $10,000, would I rather them have it on Coinbase, or would I rather them have it on Blue Wallet with it backed up properly? I'd rather them have it on Blue Wallet.
For sure.
But there's people that would say Coinbase.
I typically put the threshold at between $1,000 and $5,000, and I don't think that Blue Wallet is actually the danger here. I think it's just folks who aren't privacy conscious, not having their phone even have a password on it, leaving their phone somewhere, and then somebody could just send the money, or
I mean, that's the thing. Before you even get to this stage, you'll want to practice restoring a wallet multiple times, understand how wallets work and practice with smaller amounts.
No, but what Reed's saying is they should at least have a pin on their phone.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the main concern when I suggest people mobile wallets is I don't know whether you have a pin on your phone. If you do have a pin, maybe your Mune pin, wallet pin, you just selected was 111 and you leave your phone at a cafe. Hold and then somebody
your Mune pin. We got to go back to that. Mune.
Your Mune wallet pin. Yeah, it's a 111. You leave it at a cafe and somebody just sends your Bitcoin off. So
okay, yeah. So first step is put a password on your phone.
Yes.
I think even
a lot of people don't.
But exactly, a lot of people don't. And I spend a lot of time with folks who don't have pins on their phones, who who reuse passwords across all of their sites, who don't use password managers. You know, like
Matt, you haven't mentioned VPNs once. Very disappointed. We haven't. That was the first mention of a password manager. Thank you, Reed. That was good. Everyone should use those.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely, I guess that's definitely a real concern. I think I don't love biometric authentication, but I do think that problem has been at least mitigated severely because of the Face ID on iPhones and the fingerprint sensors on the Android phones, that people are more likely to have them locked because of convenience versus security, right? All over again. It's like they have the convenience of Face ID, so it's not like they're entering a PIN. Obviously, if you're going to really be hardcore, it shouldn't even be a PIN. Both types of phones offer the ability to do a long password, and you should really have like a proper password with numbers and letters for your phone. But most people will not do that. I agree. I think even in that case, though, most attackers are just going to take your phone, they're going to wipe it, and they're going to resell it. They're not going to look for some wallet that has Moon spelled incorrectly on your phone to figure, to take your Bitcoin. But I do agree. So we'll add that step in there. You onboard them onto a mobile wallet, but you tell them secure your fucking phone and take a backup.
And I think a lot of people just aren't used to that, because if you have a traditional bank and then you leave your phone out and somebody, clears your bank account, you can reverse those payments. And people are sort of used to that, like, backup, I guess, of just calling the bank up and going through their terrible customer support, and a week and a half later you can reverse the payment.
But I think even like the bank apps now, like they force you to do some kind of authentication or whatever, right? Like I don't know.
I think a lot of them are still PIN based, but
like, can you use an iPhone without a PIN? Can you use an iPhone just with no lock whatsoever?
You can.
Really?
Well, I think so. I haven't done that in forever, but
like just where you just swipe and there's just no authentication.
Yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm.
They don't force you to like at least do like a 111.
No.
Damn. Well, Reed, I appreciate that feedback. I hadn't really considered that. Those people are lost.
That's like
so that's my concern of like, you have $10,000 on your phone and you like don't understand that Bitcoin payments are irreversible. Right. And you like that's whereas yeah, you're at that level, you have a hardware wallet, all of a sudden there's like a little bit more realization.
Reed, I'd love to get like Reed, can we put
this is like real wealth.
Okay, so we have
just like Venmo wealth that can just get reversed around or send to your friends.
Can we put a time lapse camera on you one day when you're doing all the support tickets, just so we can capture some of like the.
We have Crypt Loco in the comment agreeing that you can use iPhone without auth. Yeah, I mean, in my theory, I plan, like, it shouldn't just be 0 to 10,000, right? I think that's an important nuance to make. It's you're putting like $50 on it a week or something. You're learning about it. You're sending, you're receiving, you're restoring, you're backing up, you're practicing with it, and you're getting comfortable with it. And maybe a 10x is involved in the process as well. And you find yourself at like 7,000, 8,000, 9,000, and you're like, okay, now I'm going to go get a hardware wallet. That's kind of what I meant. Not just like, withdraw $10,000 directly to Blue Wallet without setting up your phone with any kind of security or backup or anything. But that because I just feel like a lot of people just feel overwhelmed and they put it off. Is what happens. Is they're like, their Coinbase balance goes up and up and up, and they're like, I know I should get a hardware wallet, but Matt said like money. If I give them my mailing address, that they're gonna rob me, and then I have to find a PO box, and like it costs money. I could just stack instead, and they put it off and off and off, and then we get the 10x, and then before you know it, they got $60,000 in Coinbase. The withdrawal limits get restricted because of some new regulation or something, and they're like every week they're just like trying to get out like pennies every fucking week, just trying to get to their hardware wallet. That's the fear, right? So I think mobile wallets are very accessible, especially for smaller amounts. My point is just, I think like consensus on that threshold of where like a phone wallet becomes irresponsible is way lower than really practical. Yeah, I guess
Quick
that was
tip for when you're ordering the hardware wallets. Send them to people you don't like. That's the trick.
Well, what I like is a lot of us rent, right? So if you're a renter and you're going to leave, or you have a friend who's a renter and they're ending their lease, you get it shipped there before the lease ends. That's a very nice, easy move.
For you, not for the new tenant, but that's neither here nor there.
That's true. Didn't consider that, but whatever. It's not my fault.
Yeah, it's fine. Whatever. Let's talk coin joining for a little bit, because I think it's a topic that confuses the hell out of a lot of people. The question that was in the chat earlier was, give me 1 second. It's
can you send directly from an exchange to Coinjoin, or should you take multiple hops before one or more hops before you send it to Coinjoin?
And it's a very, I wouldn't call it a common question, but it's a question that kind of shows, and I don't mean this in a bad way, just a lack of understanding of how Coinjoin works. So let's get into how it works to kind of explain it. So Matt, like, what is a Coinjoin? Why should someone decide to Coinjoin? What are the benefits? And we don't have to get into the details of like, that's like which one you should use. They can go to the website we mentioned earlier to to learn more. But like,
First of all, before you go down the Coinjoin rabbit hole, if you want any kind of privacy on Bitcoin, the first step is, so we went to mobile wallet, then we go to hardware wallet, then you got to figure out how to use your own node. You got to learn how to use your own node, because if you're not using your own node, you're using someone else's node. And if you're using someone else's node, they can see your transactions and your balances. You're never going to have privacy on Bitcoin. And as Reed and I were talking about earlier, you're going to have, those companies are either going to get corrupted and they're going to lose their morals and decide they want to sell user data, or they're going to end up having to bend the knee to some kind of regulation, or they get hacked or something, right? So a perfect example of this is if you're using Trezor. If you're using Trezor, you're using Trezor servers. If you're using Ledger, you're using Ledger servers. And I have no reason to believe that they're tracking users or they feel malice towards users. But the problem is they could track users, they could track balances, they could track transactions, and if pressured, they might have to give up that information. They could get hacked, so forth and so forth. So the number one thing you want to do is use your own node, first and foremost. If we're talking about trying to use Bitcoin privately on the steps, then consider Coinjoin. The idea of Coinjoin is tracking Bitcoin is a probability game, okay? And basically on the ledger, on the Bitcoin blockchain, there is going to be a permanent record of transactions that are happening between addresses. Those addresses are the alphanumeric addresses, letters and numbers, the big long letters and numbers. It doesn't say your name, but it has a unique address attached to it. And when you send from one address to another, the normal send transaction is a transaction where you have one input on the input side and you have two outputs on the output side. One of those outputs comes back to the sender. It's his change. I pay $10. I get back $5 in change, and $5 goes to the receiver. And tracking Bitcoin is all about the probability of that change in ownership. Did this transaction change ownership between one person and another? And they chain surveillance companies will have software that it basically gives an analysis, gives a probability score. Matt probably didn't send this to himself. He sent this to someone else. Then they also combine all this other data they have, external data, to try and increase that probability set. And not only do they have the exterior data, but they also have certain heuristics. Like if you send a full amount with no change, like the send all button, send a full amount with no change, you're probably sending it to yourself. Maybe you're sending it to cold storage or something, because who makes a payment to someone else where there's no change involved? You just perfectly had like 0.0056 Bitcoin that someone else wanted. Probably to yourself.
Matt,
another heuristic is like if you send a fixed amount.
Sorry, real quick. Can you turn down your video quality? For some reason, it's lagging, and you're jumping all over the place.
Am I demonic?
Yeah. Yeah. Now you are.
I don't know. How do I turn off?
Click the settings button, the little gear icon. You
It doesn't let me.
No.
I see echo cancellation, noise suppression. Oh, video resolution. I'm in standard.
Oh, shoot. Well,
I'm not even in high definition. Should I try high? No, that's probably
that
a bad
might make
idea.
it worse. It says your internet's at full bars, so
yeah, I think Restream's having problems on their servers because we all fucking crapped out earlier. So are we following what I'm saying though? More or less? So another heuristic is sending like a round balance, right? So like you send if you send like exactly 0.01 Bitcoin to someone and then the change is a random amount, they can assume that the change is probably the random amount because people like round numbers. People like whole numbers. So there's all these different heuristics they use to calculate their probabilities. And they use external data to do probabilities. And the thing is, even if today someone doesn't have the capabilities of doing that tracking, maybe they don't have external data that helps them with the tracking, or they just don't have the need or know how to do it. The Bitcoin blockchain is forever. We expect this thing to outlive all of us. So in 5 years, 6 years, it could come back to haunt you, or maybe information leaks between now and then, it can come back to haunt you. So enter Coinjoin. Coinjoin is an idea where you can have a collaborative transaction. You can have a transaction, a Bitcoin send transaction that you do with multiple people. Let's say the four of us decide to do a Bitcoin transaction together, where no one takes custody of anyone else's funds. So we pass around a partially signed Bitcoin transaction. We each contribute. Let's say we each contribute 1 million sats. We put a 1 million sats in each, and we're on the send side. So on the send side, you have 4 sets of 1 million sats. And then on the output side, the receiving side, there's 4 sets of 1 million sats. And if you look at that on chain, all of a sudden that probability game we're talking about, it becomes any one of us could be 25% chance that any of those are us instead of maybe 90% or 100%. And to go back, I missed the biggest heuristic, which is reusing addresses. If you're reusing an address, if Brecky sends me an address and he's like, Matt, pay this address. And I look up the address on a blockchain explorer, and I've seen that it's received 10 Bitcoin over the last 10 years and 100 transactions. I can assume Brecky received 100 transactions to this address that are worth 10 Bitcoin. It's a very easy, almost 100% probability conclusion. Everything else falls below that, with Coinjoin breaking the probability chain the best out of all of those transaction types. And it's not just protecting yourself from like a KYC exchange or forward privacy from a KYC exchange. If I pay Brecky doesn't want me to be able to track how much money he owns or what he buys. If Brecky pays me, he doesn't want me to track how much money he has, because I could go backwards and see where the sending address was. He doesn't want me to see how much money he has. If your employer pays you, I mean, most people don't get paid in Bitcoin. I don't know if you guys get paid in Bitcoin at Swan, but some of my jobs, they get paid in Bitcoin. I don't want my employer to know how much Bitcoin I have or what my spending habits are. And my employer shouldn't want me to know what they're paying the other employees or how much Bitcoin they have. Like I recently, I got a bonus from someone, and I was able to see everyone else's bonuses. They should have used Coinjoin. This is very practical financial privacy gain, and it should become the standard. What I would like to see is most Bitcoin transactions being either actual Coinjoins where you have collaborative transactions with multiple people, or fake Coinjoins where some wallets allow you to do a transaction where even though I'm the only one that I'm paying, it looks like it could be a Coinjoin. You can't tell. Maybe there's 2 inputs on one side. Maybe it's me and Camila. Maybe it's just me, and you can't tell. So it ruins that probability track. When you're trying to do the probability, it breaks down that heuristic.
What wallets are those?
So Samurai and Join Market lets you do that.
Has Join Market, has the UI improved on that at all? Or is it still kind of...
The easiest way to do it is with Raspberry Blitz.
Oh, okay, cool.
Because with Raspberry Blitz, they have something that Project OpenArms has been working with, which is called Join Inbox, which makes it way easier to use Join Market. I think Fully Noted is working on a mobile implementation. So we'll see. It's in testing. He hasn't released it yet. So I'm cautiously optimistic about that. But right now on Samurai, you can, with a simple mobile wallet, you can do actual collaborative coordinated transactions. You where me and you, Reed, for instance, we can do a 2-person Coinjoin and pay Brecky, or by default, after you go through Whirlpool, every spend is a fake Coinjoin. If I don't do that Coinjoin with you, it'll just look like a fake Coinjoin. And it'll tell you if they can't. They're like, oh, you don't have the inputs to allow us to build this. But if you do, it'll just automatically do it.
Hey, Matt, we had another question from Roman. I think is a good one. Might bring some good things up. People FUD Bitcoin because it doesn't have a CT. If a user buys non-KYC, runs Bitcoin Core on a clean Linux, broadcasts over Tor, and uses post-mix tools, how else can we avoid gotchas?
So all of those are good.
I think he might be getting at like spending your change and things like that, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, there's gotchas everywhere in the privacy world. Everything's a gotcha. The dream. The thing is, it's possible to use Bitcoin privately today. But it needs to be easier, right? Because we're talking about the convenience versus privacy trade-off. Like, it needs to be closer to the convenience side than it currently is. And the main reason for that is not only because I don't, like when people make mistakes and fuck themselves over, which I have done myself, and I'm fucking obsessed with this shit. It's because we need more people to be doing privacy best practices. Otherwise, you completely stand out in the crowd. Like, if everyone is just doing simple Bitcoin sends and are fully KYC'd and they're not practicing any kind of privacy best practices, like the 10, I'm being hyperbolic, but like the 10 people that are obviously the 10 people that you want to target, right? Like it's.
Yeah. So FTB just said in all caps, use Lightning. How does Lightning improve privacy? I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions around this. I think it will help improve privacy, but it's not privacy by default. What do you think about Lightning and privacy?
So Lightning is number one. Lightning is nice because your transactions aren't on chain forever, right? Which means that for the most part, most Lightning de-anonymization theories, and all of this is very theoretical because really Lightning hasn't existed in an adversarial environment, involves like an active attacker, right? So the scary part, which means like you need like attackers that are on the Lightning network running their own nodes, capitalized with sats, like they load up channels and they're tracking transactions, right? The scary part about on-chain Bitcoin privacy is it doesn't require an active attacker. Like you can make a mistake now and the attacker might not be paying attention, but in 5 or 6 years, they decide that they want to pay attention and they can go back and check. So Lightning gives you that benefit. Lightning gives senders significant privacy benefits right now as it stands already. There's a bunch of gotchas. If you like fund a node and that node gets connected to you, you should assume all UTXOs, all Bitcoin that you send to that node are connected. And that's why I think when you fund a node, it should always be with Coinjoin UTXOs. So I think Lightning's a post-mix tool is what I would say. Is I think you mix first and then you use Lightning. On the receiver side, there's a ton of gotchas because on the receiver side, if you're using your own node, you have a fixed public key, which shows in your invoice. So when you post an invoice, let's say it's for the Lightning Torch or something, I could take that invoice and I can convert that into text and see what your Lightning public key is. And an easy way to test this out is if you go to lightningdecoder.com. If you paste an invoice in there, it'll tell you everything that invoice tells you. You take that public key and you go to an explorer like Amboss Space or 1ML or LN Big Sun, go to one of the Lightning Explorers. You type in that public key, it'll pull up the Lightning node, that's the receiver, and you can see all public channels that Lightning node has. If you're an advanced attacker, you can then use that node public key to probe it, try and figure out other transactions, figure out if they have private channels, figure out what UTXOs funded the node, and then go back on chain and try and start. So as you can tell, on the receiver side, there's a shit ton of gotchas. On the sender side, all of a sudden it becomes a very useful post-mix tool, in my opinion, for a Coinjoin UTXO. So if you go through Coinjoin, and let's say you have like 1 million sats, right? The whole point of Coinjoin is that all the UTXOs have to be the same size. It's like the major caveat. That's why whoever that other guy was, he mentioned confidential transactions, which have trade-offs. The main trade-offs with the confidential transactions is it creates an issue with auditability, this idea of trying to make sure that the 21 million supply cap is in. So confidential transactions will probably never happen on Bitcoin. Very controversial. I don't expect it to happen, and I'm not going to comment on whether or not I think it should happen. So because we don't have confidential transactions, every Coinjoin has to be the same exact amount. Otherwise, it breaks. The probability changes depending on what amounts you have. So if you have a fixed amount, you have the issue that, like, let's say I have 1 million sats after Coinjoin and I want to spend it. You have the issue that, like, obviously I'm not going to be able to spend it all at once. So if I spend a little bit, then I get change back, and now that change is like corrupted, right? That change becomes kind of toxic, because if I paid Brecky and I get change back, now Brecky knows that change is my change, and he can watch it, right? So what's nice about Coinjoin mixed with Lightning is you could take a light wallet, for instance, like a Moon wallet, only run through a VPN so that they don't have your IP address. Ideally, it would be even better if it's through Tor. So you could use something like Phoenix supports Tor built in. So you like load up Phoenix with 1 million sat UTXO, and then you spend it until it empties on Lightning. So maybe you make like 10 payments with it, right? And then you wipe the app and you start fresh. So it's completely different than this idea of using Lightning as a routing medium, where like these people are creating nodes and they want it to have a reputation that lasts for years, right? But it can be, there's different use cases on Lightning. And in this one specific use case, and I had OpenArms on the show on Dispatch to talk about it. And like basically he's like, you spin up a node, you load it up with one Coinjoin UTXO, you just open a single channel to a routing node, and you just spend it till it's empty, and then you delete the whole fucking thing and you start fresh again. Like that's where we are right now in terms of trying to avoid gotchas on Lightning. But if you do that, it can be very useful as a post-mix tool. And hopefully it gets easier with less gotchas and more convenience in the future. But that's the dream. The dream is that we can use layer 2 as kind of like a more private way of spending and receiving, ultimately.
I love it. I think we've this conversation has been very wide ranging, which just goes to show you how deep of a rabbit hole privacy is and how much there is to learn. So I would urge
He did warn us. This is a huge rabbit hole.
So anyone who's new, I'd urge you to check out some of the tools that we talked about. I'll post more of them in the show notes. Matt, I kind of want to give Reed some time to go over some things that he's put together for our customers. But if you have any sort of closing words and advice for the freaks, I'd love to hear them.
Well, why don't we just have Reed start? And if I have any questions for Reed, then I can ask Reed.
But I feel like I should have talked at the beginning, because all the things I have to say are sort of 101, much simpler than even coin joining and Lightning.
No, 101 is more important anyway.
Good,
let's go.
Yeah, I just put together a small FAQ that we just published about how not to lose your Bitcoin, based on sort of ways that we've heard back from our customers of them losing their Bitcoin. And most of them have to do, well, there's sort of two main categories. One is customers not understanding private keys, not taking good care of their private keys, opening wallets they don't recognize, forgetting where they sent Bitcoin. Those are actually very common for beginners. So just taking very good care. Taking very good care when you open wallets to remember what software or hardware you use to open the wallet, and then and don't open like 30 at once. Go one at a time slowly. So that's sort of one category. Another one is just folks not really recognizing how irreversible Bitcoin is and building trust too quickly with people that they don't really know. And so sending Bitcoin to people who promise them high returns, sending Bitcoin to people who promise to send them more Bitcoin back, sending Bitcoin to people who promise them sweet investments in lucrative mining in Ukraine. All of those are scams. You're not going to get your Bitcoin back. And then the next,
if Matt Odell or Camila or Reed or myself reaches out to you and asks for you to send them Bitcoin, we didn't do that. It's not us.
We're not trying to take your Bitcoin.
You should. There was a tweet today about how someone played the reverse card on the scammer.
I saw that.
Yeah. So it's like, if that ever happens, play the reverse Uno card on the scammer, and then
I think Reed, you make a very good point. In general, is that we do tend to go very deep, or at least I tend to go very deep. The important thing for people to realize is the number one way people lose Bitcoin is user error. They overcomplicate their setups. They get too paranoid. They fuck it up. They lose their backups. Maybe they decide they're just going to hodl, and 3 years later they try and access it and they just aren't comfortable with it at all. So like the number one thing is like people, you got to keep it simple. You got to slowly learn, and you have to get very comfortable with it. I personally, like, if you go to a hardware wallet, like you're going to get a cold card, buy 2 cold cards, take the backup, then restore the backup to the other cold card. And just don't overcomplicate your setup. If you're too scared about multi-sig, like use seed XOR on cold card where it splits it up into 2 seeds instead of multi-sig. And then you can keep them in different places. You have second cold card protecting it. Just keep the basics as simple as possible. And as Reed said, if you send Bitcoin somewhere, just assume you're never going to get it back. Just every Bitcoin transaction you send, you're never going to get that Bitcoin back. Just assume that.
Yeah, and then the last one we see a lot of is just real old folks who get malware on their computer, and it pops up, and the malware says, "Call this number. We're here to help you. We're a support channel." And they end up talking to somebody on the phone who makes it seem like they're their bank account, makes it seem like they're a trusted Microsoft advisor, who then walks them through a whole process of sending all of their money that's in a bank account through the Bitcoin network. So those people are unfortunately unlikely to be watching the show, but if you have friends and family who are older and who know that you're in Bitcoin, just make them aware. If anyone ever tells them about Bitcoin, encourage them to seek you out as a trusted ally, so that they don't end up, learning about Bitcoin on the phone with somebody that they don't know who's trying to drain all of their bank accounts.
I would also say, even be vigilant if you do think you're technologically savvy and you are younger and these things come more naturally. Like scammers are smart. What they do is it works. Otherwise they wouldn't do it, and they'll come up with ways to fool you. Always be vigilant about something that might look real, might not be, I spoke to a guy a few months ago who he was older, but, worked in finance. Like he should have known about these scams, and he got taken for a lot of Bitcoin. And I had to kind of break the news to him. He was in denial. It was a really, really sad phone call, and it was somebody who I didn't think would have fallen for a scam, but they did. So you never know.
Yeah, most malware protection that you download is malware itself. Maybe only if you're going to download a malware protection, download Malwarebytes. Don't download random things from the internet or that you get in emails from people, even if those emails seem legitimate. Those are my 101 suggestions for now, how not to lose your Bitcoin. In terms of privacy stuff, sort of 102 privacy. We have a XPub tool. We don't save your XPub at all. We just use it to generate 500 addresses. You can then withdraw to those addresses one right after another. I highly recommend our customers use this. If you're using a wallet like a Cold Card, Trezor, Ledger, you can create a sub account and just upload addresses from a child extended public key so that you don't get the master extended public key. And that way, all of those transactions, you aren't going to send Bitcoin into that wallet from anywhere else. It's just a dedicated Swan wallet.
Well, if I was going to go a step further, but maybe 103, we should have started with 101. We had a bad format. Would live and learn. I'm always welcome to come back.
Did you just say that you're always welcome to come back?
No, I'm always
Did you just invite yourself back?
I did say that.
Matt,
But I'm
you
always
are always welcome to come back.
Always happy to come back. 103, whatever number we're at. I like the idea of like just do a dedicated wallet that is your Swan wallet and upload the XPub from that. And just use that. That's your Swan funds. Back it up appropriately. And then when it comes time to spending or whatever, you send from there to a wallet that you're willing to spend from. Like, I think I like that. I like how clean and simple it is. There's not really that much nuance. There's not really that much gotchas there. It's just your dedicated Swan wallet, upload the XPub, get auto withdrawals. And if you want to go to 104, you can make that dedicated Swan wallet a Samurai wallet, and you can just, your premix can be the XPub, and it just shows up in your Samurai wallet, and you just click Coinjoin, and then it just goes to Coinjoin.
Perfect. Yeah,
we never answer the hops question. The hops question only matters if you're afraid your exchange is going to close your account. Like, that's what it is. It's a probability game. Like, if you go straight into Coinjoin, then they know it was you who went into Coinjoin. If you send it one hop, then maybe you sent it to Brecky, and then Brecky went into Coinjoin.
One other aspect to that question, though, or at least the way it was written, maybe it wasn't the intention. Coinjoin is not like a place that you send your Bitcoins to on the way to a wallet. Like, when you Coinjoin, you will Coinjoin from a wallet that you control. So that it could just be the first hop from Swan right to Wasabi wallet or to Samurai wallet, and from there you Coinjoin. Right. Wook Chewy. Odell just invites himself to everything.
I can't believe I said that. I obviously didn't mean that, but I'm always happy to come back. I sit on both sides of this equation, so I do get
that was the best thing you could have.
You're always welcome. I would actually love if you came on and did like a privacy-focused episode every now and then, give people updates on best practices.
Brecky, you're always welcome to join me on Swan Signal whenever you'd like.
Thanks. Well, I think.
That's a good full-time Bitcoin. FTB just mentioned there's a scam site that I don't really want to say. Coinjoin.io is a scam site. Do not go to coinjoin.io. Do not use any web browser based tool that says
between a mixer and a Coinjoin.
So a mixer is a custodial mixer, is the idea that you send someone Bitcoin and then they hold your Bitcoin and they send you someone else's Bitcoin. And that breaks the link on chain, but you have to trust them with both your privacy and them actually sending back your Bitcoin. And they can be scams and they can be honeypots. So just in general, best practice is anything that's offering you privacy in a web browser, telling you to send Bitcoin to them, do not do that. But specifically, coinjoin.io is a scam. Great domain name, though.
Yeah. Yeah, just use Samurai instead.
All right, folks. I think that might do it for the day. Matt, I wanted to thank you for joining us. Thank you for inviting yourself to the stream. It was always
Thank you for joining me.
What do you got going this weekend without revealing too much of your privacy?
I'm going to have a very relaxing weekend. Unfortunately, my plans got canceled because of vaccine passports, but I'm going to use it to get some nice rest.
You still holding things down in New York? Haven't fled yet?
No, I'm kind of all over the place, but I'm looking for a new location.
Matt, you know what you need to do? Take a photo of that backdrop that you have right there, so that when you're away, is it? No, it's not. It's not a photo. Anyway, okay, it's a photo.
Someone did say those were fake books, so
it's speculated.
Will you prove whether they are real books or not? Will you take one off the shelf for us?
No.
But yeah, everybody.
New York is dead. I don't have hope for New York anymore, Reed. It's I'm looking for a long-term home, and it's not going to be New York.
Yeah, I recently passed through there and was very concerned I'd be arrested before I made it out of the state. Got out cleanly though.
Arrested? What have you been doing? Just for being a
unvaccinated traveling.
He's a criminal.
Yeah. You look like a criminal.
Oh yeah, Reed definitely looks like a criminal for sure.
All right, everybody. Thank you for joining. To everybody in the chat, thank you again. I'm going to add some more of Matt's recommendations to the show notes. Feel free to DM him on Twitter all day long. He might answer you. I don't know. He might not. But Matt's a good guy. And if he can't answer your question, he probably will. Hit up Reed for Swan-related support questions. Matt is holding up his hand. What's he saying?
If you have a question, reach out to me on Telegram, Keybase, or Threema. All links are at mattodell.com. Do not message my Twitter DMs are broken. They're done. It's a war zone in there. I refuse to go back.
All right, everybody. Any closing words for the freaks?
Use your own node. Hold your own keys. Take it slow and steady. Don't get overwhelmed. And stay humble and stack.
Love it. Thanks, everybody. We'll catch you next week. Stay private.